Betsy and Thomas here for the American Intelligence Media. Today, Thomas, I want to know about Donna Brazile and her new book called Hack. Or is she the hack?
She's the hack.
Oh, explain.
Well, it's the comedy of the century. It's the dossier that took down the Democratic Party. It's the... Oh, we could go on all day long. This is hysterical. If you're watching Donna Brazile, every time I look at any news feed, there's a new quote from her book, which isn't out yet. So she's been feeding quotes 2-3 times a day to the Associated Press, and each one of them is more explosive than the next, getting you ready for the big reveal. And the big reveal was today. What's his name? Edward Klein? Don't remember his first name, but he was today. He's come out and he said absolutely he knows for a fact that Hillary told John Podesta to order to pay for the continuation of the Trump dossier. Okay, so the Trump dossier is the big issue, and Donna Brazile. Oh, I like her reaction to that. That was really good. But anyway, Mr. Klein came out and said this, and he basically says Hillary's a liar. And basically what he says is someone goes to jail because that's a crime. Because if you use campaign funds, and this came out of, and we predicted that it came out of Hillary's super PAC, by the way, and also the DNC. They both paid some amount. No one knows the amount, but they paid supposedly a lot of money, and those people who quote amounts, they don't really know. We'll see in the end. But they paid a bunch of money. And it went through their lawyer, Mark Elias, and he paid then a foreign agent, a British spy, who then colluded with, supposedly, we don't believe it, but it's good. I like this story, that he then colluded directly with Russians, and they got completely into all this stuff that Trump was doing, sending all his people over there to meet with them and get money and do all this stuff and plan the hack of the DNC and ooh yeah, hoop hoop. No, none of it happened. So what that was a crime. You can't spend campaign funds to pay a foreign agent to affect the election. Anyone knows that. Mark Elias, that's the reason he said he didn't do it when asked, and that's what John Podesta said. I don't know anything about it when he, under oath, said he didn't know anything about it, with Mark Elias sitting directly to his right, who didn't speak up, knowing his client was committing perjury. We have Hillary Clinton, who's already come out repeatedly in dossier. I don't know anything about it. I had nothing to do with it. I didn't pay for it. We didn't have anything to do with it.
She was delighted to see the first draft.
And then there's now the story, according to Donna Brazile, that she was just jumping up and down, and that according to Klein, her headquarters, she would walk around talking about it, saying that we got the bomb on him. And then you notice that they released it in October 31st. They released it. The Franklin Furor nonsense about the Trump Tower server was released on the 31st. So all of their October surprises, they thought were going to be big surprises, but they'd already blown it because Hillary had already sent out 8 texts referring to Donald and Russian collusion out of the blue. Okay? And then now Trump... And then she started asking Trump questions and confronting him about, you won't confront Putin. You won't say he's the enemy. You love the Russians. Well, they love the Russians. Hillary and Obama went over and loved the Russians. We've talked about that before. They're in bed with the Russians for everything from uranium to missiles to technology, oil, everything. So they're in bed with them.
Yeah,
don't
because
go
it's
there.
too big.
So the dossier was a trick to try to take attention away from her, which we know because we've quoted it so many times, that the WikiLeaks state that John Podesta said and acknowledged in December that they had a breach, not a hack, and that their weakest point, 2 weeks before that, he said their weakest point in the campaign was Hillary's connection to Russia and the Uranium One deal. So they had to throw out the opposite. And now we see why, because the Uranium One deal is a big deal. It involves everyone, even Robert Mueller, the man investigating his own self. I wonder if he jumps back and forth when he interrogates himself during the High Inquisition that he's conducting.
Folks, Thomas has a lot to say about Uranium One. If you look in the description box, I put his most recent audio, and you can learn a lot.
So, going back to Donna Brazile. She was asked, I like watching it because it's better than any comedy show I've ever seen. Because she uses Hillary Clinton's spin, just like Hillary, when asked about it, uses such professional lawyer spin, not answering the question, deflecting the question, coming up with, an instantaneous answer that's the opposite and saying, it's been debunked many times. What are you talking about? It's never even come up before. How could it have been debunked before? The Uranium One deal or anything. She always just tells a lie boldly. And that's what Donna Brazile has been doing. But now she's thrown her under the bus. So the question is why? Here is why. Poor Donna Brazile. Let me tell you Donna Brazile's real story. Her story is hacked. That's what she called it?
Hack.
Hack? No, I don't even know. Let's see. What name would I give for her right now? She's done. She's toast.
Donna's done?
Donna's done.
Oh, okay. I like that.
Toast. Why? Because the DNC was sued. Debbie Wasserman Schultz was sued, and this has already come out in court for the Bernie fake primaries because they were proven to be fraud. And the judge even said that they were fraud. What he had been presented in the pretrial statements. He said, yes, even though there is evidence of fraud here, the way that the DNC is set up is though the Bernie contributors, they took their money and then they didn't give it to Bernie. Matter of fact, for a while, they even kept him out of his own campaign funding system. If you remember, they locked him out of the DNC server. So he couldn't even get to his own campaigns section of the server where they had their donors, right? So that's when remember, go back to the campaign. His people jumped up and created their own system, and they created a system of grassroots funding where they controlled it, and he made a fortune. Well, he didn't have that fortune before that because the DNC had already taken his money, and as we now know, there was campaign fraud because of the way that Hillary handled the money coming into the DNC after she supposedly signed the imaginary Donna Brazile agreement, which, if that comes out, I will kiss your foot. And Hillary's name's not at the bottom of it.
And he didn't mean the feet of all those listening. He meant Betsy's foot.
Yeah, I will kiss Betsy's foot after she's walked around in the yard barefoot. Because why? That's complete nonsense. The court said only one person is responsible for that fraud. You can only sue one person. You cannot sue the fraud of the DNC on the DNC. You can only sue Debbie Wasserman Schultz. So what happened? She stepped down instantaneously. The second that it was announced, there was a lawsuit filed against the DNC, her, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, et al.
They set Donna up?
The lawyers knew immediately the rules.
Right.
It's a corporation.
Yes.
It's a private corporation. It has nothing to do with America. That is a George Soros now. For the last 3 elections, it was a George Soros-owned corporation because George Soros, through super PACs, controlled the DNC. So to say, when Donna Brazile said she came into the DNC, it was bankrupt. Lie. Then why did Barack Obama still have $10 million left over from his George Soros donations? Why were the super PACs filled with money from George Soros? Why did George Soros already make all of the maximum contributions he could make? Why did she lie? And then, let's see. They had no money. They were bankrupt, but then they spent. And it's a lie that they didn't know the dossier till July 2016. That is a lie. They knew the dossier in December of 2015. So that money, go back, check my words. That money was paid to their lawyer firm much earlier. And it was installments that they paid. So it wasn't paid all at once. And it wasn't necessarily the entire amount they paid Perkins Coie and their lawyer, Mark Elias. You're not going to get a straight story out of any of that, folks. Do you think that they did these corrupt things openly? That's the reason the lawyer lied. He now will be disbarred. And John Podesta of course, has to be convicted of election fraud and campaign fraud and campaign donation fraud also, because when they finally find out the truth of it, which Donna Brazile is been asked to throw herself on the funeral pyre of Hillary Clinton. Clinton is being burnt and she has to throw herself on top. Sorry. Now, she might, because in politics, once you admit everything and you're honest and you say, I'm a complete criminal, then you can come back and run again, and people forgive you.
Maybe Wasserman Schultz jumped off, because I always thought, wow, well, she left quickly, just to put Donna Brazile in that position. And Donna really does know and did know what was going on. And so she's the one that the lawsuits will be directed to. So she's trying to get in front of the story. Or am I completely off?
That's where I'm going with this.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't sure you were going off in these weeds. And I had this big thought, because I'm going, Donna, girl, what are you doing?
The second the lawsuit was filed, Donna Wasserman Schultz.
Debbie
Wasserman Schultz, Imran Awan's girlfriend. Best friends forever. Some say he put up the money for those fraudulent real estate deals. But let's remember that even after she quit, and even after Imran Awan and his whole fake crew were basically being investigated and kicked off of Capitol Hill and out of Congress, Debbie Wasserman Schultz raised his position to being an advisor, an IT advisor. She refused to fire him from the DNC. Why? He was the leak. I don't know how many times I have to say this. He had her passwords. He had all of her passwords at the DNC. He was the highest IT guy. He strolled in there. He had Podesta's emails. He had the DCC emails. He had 80 congressmen's everything. Don't even get me started. They're trying to hide the fact that there was no DNC Russian hack. We've already demonstrated that Dmitry Alperovitch was the person who planted that stuff and then later showed up because he was paid back in December.
And he was the only one allowed to look. The FBI couldn't look.
They never looked.
Oh, yeah.
It is a lie that they did an investigation. They can't. That server has been scrubbed. You want to talk about Hillary scrubbing her server? That server, which Seth Rich worked on the two parts of the server. One of the parts was for the campaign machine, basically the election machines for each of the candidates. In other words, their list of people that they knew supported them, and all of the kind of material you can get from the government about districts and so on and so forth. So that's Seth Rich worked in that system. He found out, of course, what everybody now knows. It was fraudulent. Let's remember, Bernie knew it was fraudulent from the first time the fraud was revealed on national television. He did nothing. His followers said, do something. He did nothing.
I'm like, wow, I felt
He capitulated when he had been, everyone knew it was fraudulent.
Yeah.
And to this moment, anyone who couldn't see the fraud of the DNC and Bernie.
He wanted to live, honey. Could you imagine the blowback if he had stood up to Hillary Clinton?
Yeah, that would be a Clinton suicide.
That would be another
2 shots to the back of the head. And that's what they're saying about Donna Brazile. Now here, no, it's much thicker and funnier than all of this, because these are individuals fighting for their own greed, who then get caught, and now they try to use their pathetic intelligence to get themselves out, and they make a mess of it. Don't forget that Bernie's super PAC paid for his election. Not all you little donors, I'm sorry, for those who supported Bernie, but that it demonstrated it. Bernie's campaign would have come to a halt without his super PACs during the election, because Hillary Clinton locked him out of his own campaign computer. There had to be a lawsuit filed for him to get it back. She claimed that now listen to this is very interesting. They claimed that one of his staffers saw Hillary's similar election computer program for a short period of time. They say an hour. And because of that, they tried to stop his campaign. They weren't going to even let him back in. Now, that also includes the second part of the DNC server, which held their donors. So, if you look at the donors, you'll see that the money doesn't add up to jack. That's the reason Donna Brazile says there was no campaign money. And the reason she says, well, I didn't see any,
I didn't see any ledger note for paying the lawyer. I didn't know he was paid $10 million.
You know, it just
I was in charge, but I didn't. Oh, my boss had just been fired in a lawsuit for corruption had come, and it looked like she and the whole DNC was going down, but I didn't look at the books. I didn't talk to the lawyer. I didn't ask Hillary what was going on, and I certainly didn't mess with John Podesta, knowing that George Soros told him what to do and that the real money was coming from the Hillary super PACs, which I said from first person. I said who funded that stupid dossier. Who did I say it was?
You said it was a DNC.
And Hillary's super PAC.
Oh, yes, of course.
And the same super PAC that gave money
but
to
now we know
support Jill
they're the
McCabe's
same.
campaign.
Yes, you did say that.
Yes, I did. I named this and I said when it happened.
And I thought it was so obvious. I haven't been raising a stink.
And now look, the dossier. If the dossier was paid for by Bill Kristol, who lied, or by that other guy with the who supposedly ran the money through the Washington, Beacon Light, that newsletter, that, the people who came out who were the Republicans, what was his name, who said that they paid for the Trump dossier. I told you that's a lie. That's why I don't even remember their names. Lies. That was such an overt lie. They tried to use a place they had already donated a bunch of money to at different times consistently to say, oh, that went for that. And now that's a private corporation. They plead the fifth, just like Fusion GPS. They don't get the records unless there's a major national security issue here, which there is, and they still don't have GPS's bank records now, do they? And I told you they won't get them because why? I told you the Republican donors are fake because there never were Republican donors. The Republicans did not start that dossier, and that is admitted. They did the Trump opposition research, which was in the DNC server, which was hacked, and we've all read it, I hope. I've read it over and over again. Donna Brazile knew, and the entire DNC committee knew, including Alexandra Chalupa and John Podesta and the other and Robbie Mook and those two other people that they name are now coming out against Hillary and saying, yes, we all knew this all along. Why are they distancing it? Because it was an illegal activity. Whoever paid a foreign government to create a fake dossier to affect an election goes to jail. That's not a fine. You go to jail. That would be John Podesta. And now notice. Now I want you to point this.
But are you talking about the check signer or the people who authorized the check? Who would sign the check?
I know I'm leaving some details unfinished, so this has to go on for a minute.
All right.
What did Klein come out and say? He knows for a fact that Hillary told John Podesta to pay Mark Elias. Oh, Mark Elias and John Podesta go down. They don't go down. Hillary goes down. So that's why Hillary's being thrown under the bus. They must know she's going to be indicted.
But Hillary wouldn't sign checks. That's too beneath her.
No, who signed the check?
It's
who made the order.
Oh, who made the order? Okay.
She made the order, and they will get out because all they have to do is testify against her, and they get out of doing their evil deed. And she also lied. She also lied in public repeatedly. Mm-hmm. Now, she can say she never lied under oath yet. That's the reason they never talked to her under oath, because everything she says is a lie. So it would be perjury from the minute she opened her mouth.
Well, as I have been listening to Donna's talking on television and her releases of passages from the book, I go, Donna, it looks like you are setting yourself up maybe to be a candidate. I mean, the Democrat Party is falling apart. They have absolutely nobody on the bench except for their crazy old Alzheimer-ridden people. I mean, they're a disgrace, and they don't have anyone out there. So Donna's thinking, well, what about me? And so what she wants to do is clear up her name, and she wants to come out. She would have told us all about Hillary, but had to take her position. And then she becomes the candidate.
Her book is an alibi, so she can, if she gets through this, do what Hillary did, act with impunity and run for president. And she would probably, megalomania is a type of insanity that runs with power and control. So she's out there lying every which way, but because her lie gets told first and her alibi gets laid.
She's in front of it.
She's in front of it. She says she has a signed contract. No, she doesn't.
Where is it?
If she had that signed contract, it would have been all over the news because that would have been huge and everyone would have bought her book. Now, she's going to make a lot of money off this book. This is probably the most pumped up book that I can remember maybe in my life. Okay, everybody wants to read this book because every day she tells more about how she was treated as a slave. Let me tell you, Donna Brazile was not treated as a slave and said nothing. That's a lie. She said she came in and took over the DNC after seeing that, after knowing that they were bankrupt. That's a lie. That is a lie. The super PACs were filled with money. She was in control of where those commercials went. She had to work directly with George Soros. She is a pathetic liar, but what she's trying to do is make sure she doesn't get in the line of the chain of command who ordered that Trump dossier. She would rather lose her political career, and if she, by the way, comes through this, she will think she should run for president because she'll be like, she'll be so...
There's nobody on the bench.
She'll be invulnerable because all that she's done is such a crime. Because remember, if the rigging of the primary was a crime of fraud that could be brought against Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but she already stepped down, and then the lawsuit was brought against her and the DNC, but their lawyers weren't smart enough to know it could only be brought against her as the CEO of this corporation, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. Then Donna Brazile is now complicit, not with that crime of rigging the primary. She's complicit with the crimes that she's said Hillary did, which is to gather up all the state money and funnel it to Hillary, as Hillary gives a payoff to the DNC to control the DNC illegally before the primary is even over. Oops! That's right. Donna Brazile was already involved in the DNC. She can't say there's a magical moment that when she became in control, she only became aware of what was going on. That is a lie. Of course she was aware of the budget. Of course she was aware of the rigging. Everyone in the whole country saw the rigging, and she was involved, and she had ran Al Gore's campaign. She could see the rigging. Hello? She was completely complicit with all of it. As a matter of fact, Seth Rich said that he had problems with 2 people at work that he was afraid of. And he told his family who they were. 2 women. Guess who those 2 women were? Oh, that's right. Donna Brazile and Debbie Wasserman Schultz. And let's remember that when Seth Rich was killed, the DNC sent one of the most powerful Republican lobbyists, to aid and assist Seth Rich's family, who changed their story from one day to the next 180 degrees. Said he was, completely told a different story after that Republican lobbyist, a very rich man, who said he was doing this on his own and donating a huge amount of money for rewards, which was never paid out. Not a penny was ever paid out of any reward. And then, the whole DNC was suffering. And then with Seth Rich's death, and they believed that it was 100%. Donna Brazile said it was an unfortunate theft gone wrong. They said it 1,000 times. But then they paid for the Republican and sent lobbyists to go over there. And then then it was, why did they do that? Because it was a Republican who paid for the first investigator to find out all the information that really told us the truth of what was known, that there was a video, that the Washington, D.C. police did have a video. They had a complete video of the entire thing. So the Seth Rich's lie of his death was a DNC millstone around their neck. So in her book, what does she say? After the death of Seth Rich, she was so scared that the Russians who had killed him were going to kill her that she had to close the curtains in her office and pray that the Russian snipers didn't shoot her. Would someone please lock her up? She made statements to the opposite of that were so pathetic that she was basically mad at Seth Rich for getting shot because it cast aspersions on the DNC. Oh, so let's see. She entered into an illegal contract that she says Hillary Clinton, she found this illegal contract, and she knows the DNC was in that contract, but she never turned that in. She never told anybody. She knew that they had been hacked and never supposedly said a word because Debbie Wasserman Schultz kept her in the dark. She said Debbie Wasserman Schultz was the only person who knew anything. And that includes the money. Mark, Elias probably didn't even know who he was paying when she signed the check. Oh, and Donna Brazile, she never really looked at the budget. She didn't really look at the budget line and how much money they were spending, though supposedly they were already in bankruptcy. And $24 million, oh, just save the... $24 million didn't pay for the ads for one day on one network. So those books are all cooked. If she is referring to real books, which I don't know if she is, but if she is, those cannot possibly be true. So then you go right down the list of every single thing that Donna Brazile has said. And what is she doing? Distancing herself from Debbie Wasserman Schultz, saying all the crimes happened back then. She was kept in the dark till then, distancing herself from the crime of paying for the Trump dossier, distancing herself from the crime of the rigging of the election, and then throwing Hillary under the bus so that nobody will notice the things I'm pointing out, which are every word that she said was earlier was in contradistinction to every word she says in her book.